What time period are you from?
I'm from the 1812, War of 1812 period.
Fantastic. And could you tell us a little bit about your outfit?
Okay, well, basically the most obvious part is the apron. It's a surgical apron. It's made out of leather, and the reason for that is that it will not absorb the blood, of which there will be a lot, so it's going to basically help keep the surgeon clean. And then the rest underneath, your usual shirt and drop front trousers.
So I see you're looking for a nurse around front. What would the qualifications be for being a nurse or a surgeon?
Well, for the nurse, there were no nurses per se back then. So what was required was somebody with some facility with working around people. So for example, if the army comes to town and they need some help, there's farms, there are villages around, there are women who are basically looking after their families. So they are nursing in that sense. So come and help out at the surgeon's tent. But they might do other work as well. They might be cooking, sewing, cleaning, and things like that for the men, earning a little bit of extra money.
Okay. Could you walk me through your instruments on the table here?
Okay. The main instruments here, well, I should say all the instruments are for removing something from the patient. We basically never put anything back. So major operation was amputation. Damage to arms and legs were so severe, usually they could not be repaired. Remove the injured limb and replace that mess with a more manageable wound. So, for example, this is an amputation knife. And with that, you can very easily cut through all of the tissue of an arm or a leg. You just wring it right around, expose the bone, and then the surgeon would saw through the bone. So during the course of this interview, I could have had your arm off. The speed was very important because there was no anesthesia, no painkiller, no antibiotics. You just want to finish it off as quick as possible before the patient goes into shock. Some other niceties. This is a trephine. It's a low-speed drill used to bore a hole in a patient's skull. So if they're suffering from severe headaches, some kind of brain injury, you need to get into the skull case, here's how you can do it. I'm told it did not hurt. I cannot vouch for that.
Huh. I'd rather not find out.
Exactly right. Wise. This is a trocar. So if there is fluid building up in the chest and you want to drain it, the trocar could be driven into the patient, the spike is removed, and the hollow tube is the drain. A good way for germs to go the other way, whatever they are. So I don't know. I wrote dentistry. Got to look after your teeth. This is a tooth key. So if we imagine our fingers a row of teeth, we want to remove one. Put the hook over like that, grab the handle, and then you can leverage it right out. Tooth is very important, especially in the Army. If you see these soldiers fighting, in order to load a musket, they have to bite the end off of the paper tube that contains the powder and ball. So you need at least 2 opposable teeth to do that. And if you can't bite, you can't fight. Simple as that.
Wow, yeah. So I notice you have some leeches over here.
Yes.
What would they be for?
Bleeding, bloodletting. So no matter what's wrong with you, in all likelihood the surgeon would bleed you for a number of reasons. A common way to do that is with a knife. Take a blade, cut the person open, and let them bleed a little bit. But if you're a patient in a hospital and they're bleeding you every day, that probably gets a little tiresome. You don't want to see that guy coming at you with a knife anymore. How about a leech? Apply the leech, it just latches on, and it basically painlessly will suck the blood, and then you remove the leech. So bloodletting, very common.
So I notice you're not, you're probably not doing any cooking over here. What are these spices?
Ah, yes. Well, the ginger, that's pretty innocuous. That is something that you could give for stomach upset, flatulence, and things like that. You turn it into tea. Same with the chamomile. Make that into tea. Now, the jalap, That's ground up morning glory root.
Hmm.
And again, that is for stomach and intestinal upsets. You can also use it as a laxative. But when you come to that white powder, the calomel, that's chloride of mercury. Nasty stuff. It's toxic. Mercury is very toxic. And yet they were doling this out to provide relief in the form of a laxative. Soldiers sometimes came down with things like syphilis, so they would prescribe that kind of thing. So if it didn't kill you first, it might actually kill something else. So,
Okay.
They had a long list of chemicals they would carry with them, and not all of them were really good for you.
Hmm. So I noticed you've got some threading here as well. Is that your handiwork?
This is an example of my handiwork, yes. So if you have performed a major operation and you need to sew somebody up, this is the kind of way you could do it. Now, they didn't always sew. That would take up time. It was intrusive, might introduce germs, whatever they are, into the patient. So sometimes they just closed and bandaged the person. But here we've got some pretty rough and ready stitching. Just sew the person up. You don't care about scarring. If you eventually get up and leave, that's all we care about. Survival. That's the word. Now, here's something faster and not so intrusive, not so painless. These are sticky plasters.
Huh.
Okay? So I would have mixed up a sticky solution as needed, soaked linen strips in it, laid it across the wound, and they would actually hold the wound together. Okay? You can actually combine those two things. Here, we've got an example of where suturing is indicated, but the tissue is probably too weak to hold the sutures in. So what do? Reinforce. So we've reinforced the tissue with the sticky plasters and then sewn them as well as the tissue. But my personal not favorite is this. These are straight pins that are pushed through the wound and you suture the pins.
Wow. Well, thanks for showing us some of your handiwork. I was curious about that uniform back there. Is that yours?
Yes, that is my uniform. I represent the assistant regimental surgeon, who is a lieutenant. And this is a lieutenant's uniform. It's pretty plain as a surgeon. What indicates a lieutenancy is the epaulette on the right shoulder only. It's not missing one. Only have that one. This is the shako, completely useless piece of headgear, provides no protection, just makes you look taller and more imposing. All the soldiers wore a plume on the top, different colors depending on what they did in the army. This is black. It indicates I'm the surgeon. Kind of upbeat.
Right, of course. Well, thanks a lot for showing us around.
You are very welcome. Phil Mozel, and I live in Oakville.